It used to be that you had to check your personal life at the front door of the company you worked for. But over time, the biggest lesson I've learned in diversity and inclusion is that people cannot do that. You're a whole person.
Hello, insiders. It's Laurie with the story. For your next episode of Inside Story Hunters, we're going to have the honor of interviewing Cheryl DeSantis. She is the Chief People and Diversity Officer currently for SmileDirectClub. It is one of the fastest growing telehealth pioneer organizations, $12 billion industry of actually 120-year-old organization in the orthodontist industry. Where Cheryl has over 20 years of experience from HR to marketing, you name it, of leading people, leading organizations from a place of bringing intimacy and personal care to the people, and was an advocate for virtual connections and building relationships and keeping teams connected with great technology and allowing for life balance, and is an author of a powerful book, Steel Backbone, Soft Heart, that you just have to read. So stay tuned, stay with us. Cheryl doesn't need my help to help unveil her story, but I'm honored to capture a bit of it. And I really think you're going to walk away with some incredible insight, and you really need to check out her book. It really was a game changer for me. So hang in there. Don't forget, subscribe, check out below for more details on how to reach out to Cheryl, how to find more information about her book. And we just say, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
Thank you to our sponsors of the Inside Story Hunters podcast. A big shout out to Chad Hill of Term Provider, Home of Big Lou, Tiffany Wondros, CNR Services, Michael Valletta of Quick Cuts Media. Don't forget to subscribe at youtube.com, where you can follow our weekly episodes and get an automatic link to listen to our next guest sharing a part of their incredible inside story. So subscribe or listen on any podcast channel to your Inside Story Hunters podcast. Thanks for following us. Thanks for supporting us.
Well, hello, Cheryl. I'm so excited to have time with you today on Inside Story Hunters, capturing just a bit of your powerful inside story, which you actually call origin story. So thank you for being here today. And insiders, you're going to love listening to Cheryl share her story. So.
Oh, thanks for having me, Laurie. And, I'm a firm believer that your personal story is your leadership story. And so it couldn't be more fitting that I'm on Laurie with the story today.
That's right. So, but, let's start with that origin story. I mean, that I never heard that expression. And I really thought like inside story would be kind of cliche, and it would be, it would be so common, but it fascinates me how people they really resonate when I say the inside story, what really makes up someone's internal, and you go into it in your book, your powerful book, The Steel Backbone, Soft Heart, which I love. I crazy love. I mean, the first chapter just really blew me away. The exercises. So anyway, I'm jumping around because I'm excited. But origin story, why that choice of words?
I think as I went throughout my life, I was leading a very successful life. But I had built up this invulnerability, right? I had built up this kind of armor for success. And when I started getting coaching of why I wouldn't show my full self, it really did get traced back to the fact that I was given up for adoption and I was ashamed of that. And so I had to kind of look at my origin story, which to me made sense because I was in another family. So it wasn't like my birth story. And the word just clicked to me. And I also resonate with, movie telling, and for every hero, there's always an origin story. You always have something that starts. And so I resonated with that as I started to research and reflect on my own self.
What a story. If you'll just help unveil a bit of, I want to start with your mom. I mean, your biological mother, Barbara, 18 years old in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And then brought to Pittsburgh for a doctor to check in on her. while she was in a hotel or a motel because she was a teenager who was pregnant. Tell that story, because I can't even imagine 18 years old,
Yeah.
pregnant. And
I know, I'm a mom of three daughters, and I can't imagine. So my adopted mom told me that, she was in a family growing up in Philadelphia, wealthy family. They were in Europe for the summer, came home and found out that their teenage daughter was pregnant. And this was in 1969. So it was an embarrassment. They had a doctor friend in Pittsburgh. And so they sent her to go live in a hotel by herself, and he would come and check with her. And it just so happened that he had a daughter that was kind of her age. And so he checked in on her until she gave birth to me. And luckily for me, my mom was a nurse in his practice and had struggled with miscarriages. And so that connection was made, and it was a private adoption. I didn't go through what a lot of kids and parents go through, but yeah, it's hard to believe.
right. And like you said, as a mom of three daughters and one that's about to you have college and you have high school and all different levels, right? It's really, I mean, it must be so close and dear to your heart. How has it impacted the way you parent?
You know, I think being a kid of adoption has impacted me a couple ways. I think one, it was this big mystery. So when I had my first child, I was like, okay, am I going to feel differently than I feel towards my adopted mom? Is there going to be some big magical thing because I now have met my first blood relative? And I don't know any different because I've never met my biological mom, but I just can't imagine a love bigger than that. So that was eye-opening for me. And then I don't know, I think I lived a lot of my life in fear of being abandoned from being adopted. So I just tried to fill my kids with confidence and security and stability so that they didn't go through the same insecurities and unworthiness that I walked for a long time.
Absolutely. And as you reference it in your book, inherent fear of abandonment,
Mhm.
and the power of that, whether it's healthy or not. And obviously most of it isn't.
Right.
But I know for myself that you compensate in areas that really you're almost having to pull back and say, let me not put this on my child because it is
Yeah.
not, I'm not sure it's present, but it's your own fear. So you elaborate and go deeply into that into your book. So what is the story of Steel Backbone, Soft Heart? I mean, it's writing a book is like standing before a group. These are my words, standing before a group naked and saying, okay, critique me. Go
Yep.
ahead. So walk us through the journey as an author.
Yeah. For a couple of years, I really always felt like I had this book in me around heart-centered leadership. And it was always on the shelf of me being too busy to do anything. And, my leadership style was really transformed when I discovered Brene Brown's Shame and Vulnerability. And it
Mm.
really unlocked something in me that said, let me open up and actually share my struggles, share my heartaches, share who I am. Because I used to not do that because I thought if people knew that, they wouldn't accept me and I'd be rejected. But that work from Brene Brown really unlocked me. And so it was on the shelf. And then last year, I went through a bit of a tragic situation where the man I'd been dating for 15 months passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, at a young age. And it really knocked me for a loop, obviously, emotionally, because I loved him. But it also, the grief of it, for some reason, helped me get laser focused that we've got one life to live and that I need to get on this message. And the time is now, because he was always pushing me to do this book. And there was something cathartic about it, that it was like my love letter and my gift to him and to
Beautiful.
me. And there was something in his death that made my heart grow 2 sizes bigger. And I wanted to share all I'd learned with anybody I could, even if it was just one person.
What do you think the book is doing for the reader?
I think Steel Backbone, Soft Heart is an exploration of who you are, but more importantly, permission to let the areas we try to hide out. We spend so much of our life trying to hide our imperfections and, don't look at this because this side of me is ugly, or I'm ashamed of this side. And I think through the exercises and the work, it's just an invitation to lead a more authentic life where you are just letting people see the true version of you and where all of you is respected.
Your book references living an inauthentic life. And I do believe, I take things in chapters, stories, everything's connected to a story, but like from the age of like 1 to 10 is chapter 1, and the age of 11 years old to 20 is like chapter 2. And so much of my life, I lived in an inauthentic way. And I hope that today will unveil a lot of great inspiring information, because you really dig into the unlearning limiting beliefs,
Yes.
right? That if we would almost reverse some of the approaches of how we teach people, and with all of your experience, this is your episode, this is your
Yeah.
turn to share your story, but in an inauthentic way, we carry ourselves, most of us, for so long,
Mhm.
and stopping it sooner. I feel like your book and the exercises and the areas, it's just really saying, watch how transparent I'm going to be. Go to next page, because it's going to say to you, hey, if I'm going to unveil this, you might as well do it too. And look at the healing that comes.
Yeah, I think people feel at risk of sharing, like there's going to be some type of blowback. And it usually is not being accepted or being judged. There is a meme that I love, and it's probably an 8-year-old girl who's muddy and having the time of her life. And she's got this jubilant expression, and it says, "Remember her." And
Yeah.
that's that wild sense we have as children that, nothing matters except just the full expression of yourself. And over the years, it gets kind of beaten out of us. You have to be
Yes.
perfect. You have to look this way. You have to be skinny. You have to, be the perfect mother, the perfect worker. Or, if you're a man, it happens as well. You have to withhold your feelings, you hold it in. But we're meant to live one wild, crazy life. And it's that exuberance that I want people to recapture. And at a younger age would be even better. I learned it later.
Well, it makes me think of the part of your story, your origin story, 4 years old, sitting down with, is it Jan and
Yes.
Gordon, were your adopted parents? But Jan sat you down and let you know that you were adopted. And 4 years old, it started some of those limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
So, and
Mhm.
I'm assuming you still carry that experience. And we're talking about being 4 years old.
Yeah. I think we all have, speaking of stories, I think we all have an epic storyline in our life of something we're trying to overcome. And it because it's something that repeats in your life, whether it's professional or personal. And, for me, I will always be practicing the art of knowing that I'm good enough just for who I am. And,
Mhm.
the adoption thing made me feel like I wasn't good enough because my family of origin did not want me. And they so didn't want me that they sent their daughter, to another city, and that had a lot of wounds, that had a lot of things of me saying, I have to be perfect. I can't show them upset. I got to make everybody feel okay, even if I didn't feel okay. And there were so many enabling behaviors that ended up making me absent from my life. And that's what I felt about being more authentic. I was a chameleon who was just trying to make everybody else happy and make everybody else like me.
Absolutely. 20 years of experience. We're going to, even though you're only 19 years old, but which is a little difficult knowing your daughters are a little older than that, but still, Chief People and Diversity Officer. This is a key role that you've been a disruptor when it comes to the SmileDirectClub, the things that you've done. I'd love for you to elaborate. Let's take us through your career journey. Of course, I go right to the heart of what's really with the foundation that has built you, your origin story. But walk
Yeah.
us through your powerful career story, because now you're standing on stages. Now you're a keynote speaker. Now
Yeah.
you're an author, and you have multiple podcasts, and the story goes on. So you're out there, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
You're out there. So So take us through your career journey, if you would.
It's been one of these, twists and turns, but I'm really proud of it because underlying every move I made was a question that said, why not? If it's going to make me have broader skills, I'm going to learn something new. Let's try it. So, I graduated from the University of Virginia and thought I'm going to go be a public relations whiz, and I got into PR initially and I didn't really love it. It was in my first jobs and I just thought I wasn't connecting with it. I realize now it's because there was no heart connection at the time, but I meandered through corporate communications. That was my degree. Got a master's degree in that and marketing, and at MCI, which doesn't exist anymore, I was in TV advertising and got to be on ads with people like Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes. But I really realized through all of that what was missing for me was the people element. And I had been on teams my whole life. I played fast pitch softball and basketball, and I went to college on a softball scholarship. And I started looking into the HR function, the human resources function, because I missed the coaching element. I missed being able to receive coaching, give coaching. And so I started in the HR field, but it was in the communications field because that was building on my marketing and PR experience. And I was lucky enough to land in a company called Mars, which most people know from, M&Ms, and but they have a big pet care division too. But I landed in Mars, and thank God for them. They really honed my leadership skills and basically said, no, we want you in the HR field proper. We want to get you in there. And I was nervous because I'd never really been in traditional HR. I just knew there was lots of rules. But Mars did HR differently. And it was really empowering, coaching, enabling, and I loved it. And so that's how I got into the HR space and spent 13 great years there. And that brought me to Nashville. And then a SmileDirectClub came calling with an offer I couldn't refuse, which was to go help them build a company from scratch. And that's where I'm sitting today. And I love it because our mission is to transform lives through the power of a smile. And I really resonate with that. Really, really.
Let's also brag on you about the award, right? That SmileDirectClub is number 11 on the Financial Times in 2021.
Yes, that we're fastest growing. And we also just got named as a best place for diversity and for women. And we're really fostering inclusion, diversity, and belonging. And if you don't mind, since this is a story, do you mind if I tell a quick story about what really sealed the deal for me?
This is your show. This is your episode. Go.
When I was being recruited by SmileDirectClub, I started researching it. And, everybody said to me, wow, you're at this big, amazing company. And I love Mars. And I took a risk going to a startup. But the number one reason I did was because when I was growing up, I had the most amazing stepdad. His name was Ed Duffy, married my mom when I was 10. And he was the most positive, encouraging, empowering role model of a father. I mean, I so lucked out. And when we were kids, he would ask us every day, like, who'd you make smile today? And what he would say to me later was, it was better than how was your day? Because you would say fine. But every day I had to come home and tell who I made smile that day. And it made me think about it throughout the day and actually try to make people smile. And so when that came in, I thought, God, I can work for a business where I can make millions of people smile every day. It really sealed the deal because at that point, Ed had passed away, and it was a way for me to honor him and to continue to living out that question in a very powerful way.
I find it so fascinating. Think about this, that Ed chose to say to you, make people or help people smile. And it's a part of your childhood.
Yeah.
And I really do try to encourage people, especially my sons. I'll say, tune in to what's happening right now, where you hear this common denominator, this repeated, the use of words, the story, right? I mean, really, my nickname, Laurie with the story, was just really family rolling their eyes saying, here she goes again, Laurie with the story. But your sweet, stepdad saying, helping someone smile, then you spend these years, and here you are as a chief people and diversity officer in this powerful $12 billion company that's connected to smiles. So I mean, it's almost like God, and I work on God's payroll. I feel like that's really what we're here for, to influence, touch lives, and enhance and grow. And by the time we're ready to leave this earth physically, that we hopefully have come to the best version of us. But where I'm going with all of that is to say, it's almost like we're being given the little hints, the right, the little God winks that says, Cheryl, get ready to be connected to Smile. Look for it.
Yes, I am a big believer in God winks. And I believe this one was a shoulder turn. I believe that they went, I want you to go this way, and I'm going to connect you with something you've heard your whole life, but you had no idea why you were hearing it. And then I went, okay, I see you, Ed. I mean, when that job was coming, I just looked up and said, I see you, Ed. Thank you for this. Thank you for this steer. And I knew it was the place I needed to be.
But you're watching, you're looking, you're listening. You took the painful experiences and you continue to use it and pay it forward. And Cheryl, I believe it's Matthew who is really, the president of your fan club, and the one that just came along and said, make this happen, do something with the book. I believe in you. And I'm sorry, it was a short season.
Yeah.
Am I right?
It was. Yeah, it was 15 months. And, soulmates come in all forms, and not all of them last 30 years or 50 years. Some of them come into your life for a very short period, but they transform you. And that's what that relationship did for me. Was it really transformed my sense of self, because it was the first time where I really sat in my skin and said, my voice matters, because prior, again, being a bit of a chameleon, I used to not voice over. When my ex-husband would do something, I mean, he didn't mean to, but it would hit me the wrong way, I would never voice that over. So it was just a lifetime of unanswered hurts, because I just swept everything under the rug. And that really transformed me. And then his belief in me was unbelievable. And it really switched a light on in my head of, I can do this. I mean, for a woman was afraid of vulnerability, to put steel backbone, soft heart out, which is my whole life story, faults and all, it's a monumental shift. And so I feel like if I can do it, other people can too, because I really was afraid of vulnerability.
I ask every guest this question, may you live to be 300 years old, your footprint, your legacy, and people usually go right to their kids. But I'm talking about you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
The influence. How are you remembered? What is it that you want to have, left a footprint and the legacy in this world? In your own words, what is this? And what is that about for you?
Yeah, I love this question, this legacy question. I have a very clear ambition that I want to change corporate America and their view on leadership to where we are rewarding heart-centered leadership. And that's what Steel Backbone Soft Heart is about. I've worked for many, many, many leaders where it's only about numbers. It's only tactical and what can you deliver for me? It's not about let me empower you so you can deliver your best. Let me invite vulnerability so you can be your whole self and bring your whole self. Because when you're more comfortable and respected, you're going to do more for the business. And so I really want to be known for that. And I want to start one company at a time. And I want to leave a better world for my kids for when they go into the workplace.
You have been in a seat. I've experienced it myself, but there's folks that are going to view and listen to this podcast that have a leader or a coworker or a subordinate, someone that they're connected to that steals their joy more than they're willing to admit, because they're tied to a paycheck. There's all kinds of factors. You've walked through it. And I'd love for you to elaborate from the place of what was that experience like for you? And then what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I like to tell this story now, but it was very painful when I was going through it. I went through an experience where I worked for someone who did not want me on the team. And in my view was threatened by my role on the team. And because I was the HR person, the vehicle he used to make me leave was to undermine me in every way possible, through my peers, through my direct reports, by showing that he didn't support me, by talking about my faults and talking about, where he didn't think I was good enough. And I mean, talk about hitting your core wound. I mean, it was just exploding inside of me. And I would call it a bullying experience. There were times where I would walk in and say hello, and he wouldn't even look up from his desk and acknowledge my existence. And, it was really heartbreaking. I stayed in that situation for 18 months. I had days where I would wake up and I would just not want to get out of bed. I would not even want to be in the world. And for someone who's so positive, I mean, I'm probably an eternal optimist. It really was, I don't know, I felt like I was circling the drain, and I felt the weight of my mortgage on my shoulders. I felt like if I told my kids this wasn't going to work out, that they were going to be disappointed in me. It was led to the unraveling of my marriage. And it was really hard and debilitating. And, we did get through it. I think more people started to see it, and he started to change. I started to change. And, we finally worked our way together, and I stood in the fire and got out. And when I went to SmileDirectClub, I went, I ran towards it versus running from something. But if I had to change one thing, it would be, I just would have gotten more people to help me get out of that situation. I was so determined to prove that I was good enough and that I belonged in that chair and that I was going to win him over, when the fact of the matter was I never was, because he was not willing to meet me halfway.
That's it.
And so I just stayed at it too long, and it almost destroyed me. But now I really can see the season of that in my life. A, I needed to harden up my shell a little bit, but B, I needed to learn how to fight for myself. I was very willing to self-abandon, leading back to the original wound. And that situation taught me that if I don't fight for myself, nobody else will.
And here you are standing before organizations as a keynote speaker, talking about strategic people and organizational development, which I think it's fancy, right? But it's really, that's what you're talking. I mean, strategy, people, development, organizing, and understanding the power of what you're saying is to say, when it's a difficult situation, there's always a solution. And you've got having safe people, safe places is so important. Operating without it is where we struggle. So,
yes. And it was also a good lesson on, I had done so much personal development that I thought I was kind of beyond my self-limiting beliefs, but that situation brought me right back into, I'm not good enough. Everybody sees it. This guy's making it known. He must know more than me. And I got in the grip. And once I was in the grip, it was really hard to get out. So the other lesson was, get people who see you, the real you, to help you, and talk to them every day if you need to. Because I really got lost in the pit of despair during that.
Well, so tell us how we can find out more information about your book. And your website is CherylDeSantis.com.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. My website, CherylDeSantis.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And the book is listed on Amazon, Steel Backbone, Soft Heart. I think it is one of the things that could potentially change how you view yourself and what impact you leave on this great world.
I actually think it would also be awesome for a leader to buy a couple copies and, start that little book club or hand it out to their managers, especially if they're working in virtual environments, which I know this telecommunications and working in a virtual environment is not something that was new to you over the few years of being impacted by a pandemic and people just were forced into it. This is just a way of life for you. So can you not write a couple copies of it and turning to your leaders and say, do a couple exercises. You don't have to share things, but maybe it's just our way to really learn your origin story, help us become aware of maybe some of these limiting beliefs that we can empower each other.
Yeah, I just did, in the book, I talk about the tree of life exercise, and I just did this with my direct reports, and it brought us together like this. Within 3 hours of explaining our tree of life, which, as you can imagine, is our roots, what brings us strength, what our gifts are to the world, it just bonded us like that. So there's a lot of good exercises in there. And I think with the origin story, even just asking people to share, who were the people that were impactful in your life? What were those painful truths that you had to look at? And what have you done with that story? It really does bring a team together.
Incredible. And, our mutual friend, a big shout out to Jamie George for connecting us, powerful life coach and successful entrepreneur. And, he's someone that we've interviewed here on the Inside Story Hunters, but he was talking to someone and had the privilege to listen in, where he's like, we go through life, we have coaches, we have mentors and teachers. And then all of a sudden we walk out into the real world, and there we are without that support. So having a leader like yourself, where you're turning to your team and helping them become vulnerable, unveiling those limiting beliefs and bonding people, and how that's what your book's all about. And I felt it from, page 3 of let it be personal. Everything's personal. So
it used to be that you had to check your personal life at the front door of the company you worked for. But over time, the biggest lesson I've learned in diversity and inclusion is that people cannot do that. You're a whole person, and there's going to be something. Look, I'm a single mom. If I'm in the office and my kid needs to be picked up from school, that's a very real event. I can't pretend like that doesn't exist, and it impacts me, because then I get stressed of how am I going to make this work on both ends. And I just believe heart-centered leadership is around just valuing and respecting the whole person, and then finding ways to show your heart. Because once you unzip your heart, people just gravitate towards you, and it's impossible to zip that back up. You just transform as a human being when you start to share a little bit of yourself.
Yeah, it's just like the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. It's just, they just let us out. I mean, I go to the extreme and say, it's like I got out of prison when I started to be able to breathe a little bit more, when my sons were off to college, and having a little time to be a little more creative and more of a risk taker. So, I mean, your book really it touches parts about that vulnerability. The sooner we make that happen, the surrounding ourselves with people that allow us to do so. If I had only known who we hang out with personally and professionally will change our life every minute of the day. So
yeah, your tribe is your vibe, and I think they say, if you look at the 5 people you hang around with most, you can start to see the patterns of some of your outlooks on life. Like if you're around negative people all the time, you will be negative, and if you surround yourself with empowering, engaging, encouraging people, you will walk a very different life.
absolutely. I mean, someone had taught me that years ago, and they said 5 people,
Yeah.
find out what their annual income is, divide it by 5, and that's probably where you're at. And it's spot on most of the time, right? And that applies to everything else, emotionally, spiritually, like you said, communication skills. So, which makes me, I don't want to forget, you have a favorite quote that I really love. So share it with our insiders.
Yes, it's a quote by Joseph Campbell, and the quote is, "Where you stumble, there lies your treasure." And I've really learned this over the years as a recovering perfectionist. I thought I had to hide my stumbles, but actually my stumbles were my greatest gifts. And when you look at my book, you'll see I've been through a lot of loss and a lot of adversity. And that could really have made me turn inward and give up. But the treasure really was what I learned from each of those situations. And I love that you brought up the caterpillar and the butterfly, because if you actually look at a caterpillar and a chrysalis and a butterfly, they go through a lot of thrashing about and a lot of pain, actually. And it's a beautiful story of pain. While we don't want to go through it, it actually can lead you to something more beautiful if you choose to see it that way.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't mean to keep referring back to the loss of your loved one who was, your big advocate for your book. but I went through my own experience, Mr. Right, Barry Wright, and he was, he was my Mr. Right. But it's that loss and that person, the influence, the way they impact you, that just you do something with it and do something on their behalf to honor it. And that's what makes life so powerful. So that it's just
I
ongoing.
I really do believe that. I really believe that God put him in my life to shake things up and to for both of us really. And he got some unconditional love there. And I did as well. And there was a reason for that. And grief is a terrible thing. And I went through my whole depths of that. But I really do believe coming out the other side, my feeling was I'm not going to let his death be in vain. And I'm going to live the biggest life possible, knowing that he's like right here on my shoulder and living it with me with all the great lessons. And that was empowering and, really helped me get through that season of grief.
Well, I just say thank you for sharing a bit of your origin story that we call Inside Story. And I'd say as we wrap up this episode of Cheryl DeSantis telling her story, and don't forget to check out or actually make the purchase, buy her incredible book, Steel Backbone, Soft Heart. Is there anything that you want to leave our insiders with as we finish out the episode today?
No, I want to extend that same invitation for everyone to live their biggest life and to really discover who you are. And so you're making sure you're not holding yourself back, because when you are living in your full self, you can feel that radiance and that love and joy. And so I just want the best for everyone.
Well, I want the best for you. May you continue to launch another podcast, write another book, stand on another stage, whatever makes your heart smile. Interesting. Let's focus on smiling, but make others smile. And thanks for being a gift in the world, because you're making a difference. And I feel so fortunate that we've been connected. And I look forward to our friendship going on for a very, very long time. So thanks for being with us here
Thanks,
on
Laurie.
the inside. Thank you. And just insiders, don't forget, subscribe, check out below for more information, how to reach CherylDeSantis.com. That's her website. And check out her book. And we provided all the information you need in order to follow her. And if you're looking for someone to come and speak before your group, she's the person you want to learn more about. So thanks. And I'll just say, everybody have an amazing day. Bye for now.